I want to turn now to the first kind of core topic, which was VDI and the VDI use case. And I'm going to actually turn the mic over to our friend from VMware, Mr. Tristan Todd, and he'll be assisted by John Phillips for any questions you might have. So Tristan, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks. Jeff. Well, thanks for having me. Thank you to Tintri for collaborating with VMware on some recent tests that we've run. I wanted to talk a little bit about the background of the testing and some of the test results and some of the impacts that we think the Tintri VMstore technology has on the business that we're in, desktop virtualization. And also wanted to talk about some of the things that we have planned going forward. So my name is Tristan Todd. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm a good friend of Bill Hill. I believe he's a Tech Field Day delegate. And I'll share there is a Bill Hill tie-in in my slide deck that I'll share with you. But let me explain a little bit about the background of the testing and the background of storage for VDI. A lot of these messages probably aren't going to be new to many of you, but we think storage for VDI has to offer three core attributes. It has to be simple, simple to scale, simple to deploy. It has to be simple integration. Because a lot of our customers are just overwhelmed with the complexity of desktop of the future on the back end. We think that storage for VDI has to be simple out the gate from day one, easy to deploy, easy to scale, easy to manage. Has to be low cost. Too often, I was hired out of the customer space. Too often, you have people come. Hey, a desktop, what's the footprint? What's the cost? About $500 a seat, $1,000 a seat? Well, I can go down to Fry's or Costco and I can get a really good desktop for cheaper, so why wouldn't I do that? So we think we have to drive the hardware costs involved in desktop of the future very low. We have to be competitive with physical desktops. And finally, we have to deliver performance. I don't know how many people own tablets or smartphones, but we're getting very used to very low latency flash-based storage. In this room? So you can imagine that if you took a notebook like this Lenovo laptop and you did a P2V conversion and you offered up 7,200 RPM level performance, level latency in a virtual desktop experience, some users might say, oh, that's as good as my Lenovo laptop. Most customers say, you know what, I don't want to look at an hourglass. I want my app to fire crisply right away, just like it does on my iPad or on my Android tablet. So why did we test with Tintri? There's a sea of what I call nouveau storage vendors out there. And I really pay attention to all of the storage vendors that are not EMC, not NetApp, not Hitachi. Tintri has generated a lot of buzz. Bill Hill, he had a blog post and he called me and he said, hey, I just saw a presentation by Tintri. Have you heard of him? I said, no, I haven't heard anything about him. When I was in the PSO, I had lots of customers say, hey, we've heard from this company Tintri and we've seen a pitch and it looks really attractive. And we've had a lot of buzz come our way on Tintri. We've had a few very sizable deployments where the customer was looking at Tintri. We like the fact that NFS, from a management standpoint, is very simple. And we think Tintri is very unique in the space in that they have a VMware file system, and it's very crisply executed. And I'll show you a little bit more on that as well. So what did we test? We took a Tintri VMstore, the T540. Am I getting it right? We took some commodity Dell hardware, pretty beefy host, R720s with a 1/4 terabyte of RAM, a mix of 10 gig and 1 gig networking. We took our latest GA code, vSphere and View. We used a tool called View Planner, and we deployed Windows 7 desktop that was optimized for a VDI environment. And then we used VC Ops to collect data, and you'll see some of that data here shortly. Pretty simple footprint in the rack, pretty small. We did violate one of our core best practices in that we put all of the management VMs, so the SQL Server, the Active Directory, domain controller, the VC Ops appliance, we put all of that on the same storage as the desktops. And that's kind of the first rule that you don't violate in a good VDI design is you don't mix your server workload and your desktop workload. But we wanted to see if this was possible, and I'll explain that. Single 13 terabyte volume, 12.7 I rounded up. So pretty small footprint in the rack. We used a tool called View Planner, which is similar to Login VSI, if you've seen any other VDI studies that are done out there. View Planner is basically a way that we can generate simulated user workload, application activity, logins, logoffs. We can spin up an environment very quickly. We can simulate thousands of users without having to track down thousands of warm bodies to actually test with. What we do is we can test a very large scale deployment. We can fire custom apps. We can adjust parameters and retest very quickly. We run a common set of applications, and we try to, in our benchmark configuration, generate what we call a task worker type of desktop. So this is kind of the average Office user out there that's interacting with the Microsoft Office suite, doing some PDFs, doing a lot of web browsing, perhaps looking at some slideshows, watching videos, and the like. We fire all that workload randomly. We can run periods, we can run multiple iterations. We can have a test run for days, or we can simulate an 8-hour workday. For our benchmark, we run a 5-iteration test. We look at 40 key application response time measurements. Those are measured at the View client. So a lot of tools like Login VSI, they actually measure some of the app latency at the virtual desktop. We actually do it at the endpoint. We measure it all the way from the View client to the hosted desktop and back. So that's what people are going to see behind the keyboard and mouse. So that's a key thing that View Planner does that no other VDI performance tool does. We take all of these metrics, we take the 95th percentile result, and if that result is less than 1.5 seconds, we have a passing score, meaning the user experience is deemed to be mathematically good. So our engineers tell us that this View Planner score, if we're at sub 1.5 second for the application response time, it is a good user experience, meaning users are satisfied that it's a snappy desktop and they can be productive. So some key results in our testing. From the time that we actually logged into vCenter to the time that we had vCenter migrated onto the VM store, the 10-tree array, it took 8 minutes. And that's with me not opening the manual. That's with me not counting spindles, calculating an aggregate, reading any documentation of any kind, or doing anything fancy with vSphere. We've done no tuning. We've done no optimization. 8 minutes to be online. It was really that fast. Competing storage technologies, you might be 8 hours. You might be 3 or 4 days. You might be a couple of weeks to pull that off. This is dead simple. We started with link clone testing. We fully composed 1,000 link clones on the single VM store in 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's quite a, if you're familiar with VDI, that's quite a result, actually, to get that many link clones fully composed, 0 to 1,000 in 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's measured at the broker. So a lot of white papers and reference architectures talk about time to deploy, and it's measured as when is the virtual machine powered on? When does it have an IP? We actually measure at the broker because we want to see the customization, we want to see the domain join, and we want to see the broker actually talking to the agent on the desktop. I mean, it's ready for a user to log in. We achieved a View Planner passing score with those 1,000 link clones, and our total storage footprint at the conclusion of the test was 590 gigs out of that 12 terabyte. So looking at the host resources, you can see that we took those 4 hosts and we drove them to the brink. We drove them well north of 80% CPU utilization and RAM utilization. Not what I would consider a safe thing to do in a production environment. We typically recommend our customers keep memory resources and host CPU resources at 80% or lower. But we felt that testing at 1,000 is a nice round number. And we feel that most customers operate at about a 65 to 70% concurrency threshold in the production environment with VDI. And so we could safely say that this VM store configuration with only 4 Dell R720s could host 800 concurrent sessions quite easily. So the data store latency was quite low. This is very, very good performance. This is comparable to some of the testing that we've done with Virident, Fusion IO, EMC Project X, formerly known as Extreme IO. I've done all those tests. I'm responsible for that work, and we find that this 10-tree VM store is delivering that low latency. We actually, during this test run, you could see that we pushed the throughput. We pushed pretty hard. Most of that big right or read activity there is as we took some of the data and stashed some of the test results. That's kind of the tail end of the test when we take the desktop application results and start writing them to the test harnesses. From the data store operations, the IOPS perspective, we pushed the Tintry VM store to about 25,000 IOPS. And the interesting thing was we didn't push the storage processors very far past 25% utilized. So effectively, we could run a lot more desktops. I ran out of hosts. I only had 4 Dell R720s. If I added hosts, we may have gone up to, we would have ratcheted up the density and tried to break the VM store, but we just didn't have enough compute.
See what we can do about that.
The desktop vDisk latency, this is the metric that I think matters the most to delivering good user experience to a VDI user. And we see that this is all in the, well south of 10 milliseconds, and we think that this is what we can deem ultrabook level of latency. So we're delivering 1,000 link clones, and we're delivering not just good user experience, but it's very ultrabook in its workload characteristics or in its response characteristics. And we think this is fantastic because these are desktops that possibly could outperform this Lenovo laptop. Full clones, very similar set of tests. We had 1,000 full clones, so no linked clones here. Full clones, 2 hours and 22 minutes, and a passing view planner score. 1.5 terabyte footprint for those full clones, so you can see that VDI is hard at work there. And NFS, it's thin by nature, so we have a very, very tidy footprint there. Similar utilization numbers at the host RAM and CPU level. Data store latency, actually a little bit better since we don't have a Delta file in use. We don't have a split I/O characteristic that you see with linked clones. Data store operations, you see we had a very brief spike there. And the vDisk latency, once again, what I think is the key metric there, very, very low, very, very low latency. Definitely sub 5 millisecond average latency. It's just fantastic. So some of the things that we wanted to discover during the testing, we did validate in that we put all of the infrastructure, everything required to run 1,000 desktops on a single VM store. We did split the management servers at the compute level. We had a very small Dell R610 that actually hosted the virtual machines, View, View Composer, vCenter, and the like. We did that consciously because we wanted to have a real measurement of the desktop impact at the host level. But we had all of those virtual machines, management VMs, on the VM store, so right alongside the desktops. So we believe that you could, in this architecture, not have to segregate your servers and your desktops. And finally, the final thing that we discovered, it is truly easy, dead simple to deploy a VM store. If I can do it in 8 minutes, a really sharp person can probably do it in 4. But it was really quite easy to bring online. There was not a lot of guesswork in trying to get the thing tuned or optimized. In fact, we didn't tune anything. So simple, this is a big Lego in the data center that I think makes VDI easier from an architecture standpoint. We think the cost numbers, is it okay to talk about retail pricing? So it's the VM store, the retail is $95K. So when you take the cost of the storage and the network and the VM store, all the hardware required for these 1,000 desktops that we did, we got the price down to about $165 per seat, which we think is fantastic.
That includes the servers and the network.
Yep, servers, networks, the cables,
The
everything.
storage, that whole stack you showed earlier,
Yep.
right? Under $200 a desktop.
Yep. And finally, the delivering that performance. This is one of my favorite VDI slides because I think that people like the concept of taking what's on people's desktops today and just virtualizing it. The reality is that the newer generation of workers they've always had low latency storage, and they have always, or they expect that in their place of work. And so we think that focusing on desktop of the future, we need to be doing something, not just taking what's on people's desks today and recreating the data center. We want to do something that is a little bit more forward-looking.
So you're saying the young are spoiled?
Yes. Yes. So with that, I really thank you for your time, and would love to take your questions. And I don't have any interesting Bill Hill stories, I'm sorry to say. He really is a good friend. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, but he's not the kind of guy that generates embarrassing stories.
No, he's not. You know, he really isn't. He really isn't. I saw him at VMworld, and we went to a cocktail party together, and he was very straight-laced and very good behavior.
Well, that's too bad.
The most scandalous you could say is that he was at a cocktail party. Yes. Yes.
I think he was drinking a Diet Coke.
That
What
is
a wacky guy.
But no lemon in the glass. So. No questions or?
So are enough details about View Planner and the test workload available to repeat this kind of testing?
Well, View Planner is a tool that we use internally. We give to our partners. It is readily available on Partner Central. It's not a tool. It's not a fling. It's not a product that we sell or we give out. It's definitely for VM and VMware and partner use only. Login VSI is the commercial tool.
Mm-hmm.
So Tentry could give you a copy.
Yeah.
Long.
I would say that I would say that View Planner in my hands, I can be very effective in getting View Planner to run and execute. I've got a lot of experience, but it's not productized. It's not documented like VMware products usually are.
Mm-hmm.
So to be successful, it would be quite a challenge actually to not have direct access to Partner Central and the like. Also, our professional services team has a SKU called the scalability assessment, where they actually bring a consultant on site at a customer environment, an existing environment or a pre-production environment, and do a scalability assessment to validate that the architecture, the infrastructure is ready. I don't know if that's going to change. I don't know if View Planner is a tool that we're going to start giving away. But my belief is we really need to productize it, improve the documentation, and make it a little bit more crisp.
As a test suite, it would be very handy.
You know, I thought the same thing. I first saw a flavor of this orchestrator tool at VMworld, I want to say 6 years ago, and it was a collaboration between Dell and VMware. At the time, they basically had a monstrous a set of auto IT scripts, and it was called the Rock. And it was a way to basically fire apps, have a simulated user sending emails, receiving emails, and the like. And at the time, I was one of the brave souls that actually approached the mic and said, "Can I have Rock?" And they said, "Sorry, it's something that we do internally. We don't have any plans to productize it yet, but it is the #1 question asked at any of our desktop presentations where we include View Planner in the presentation. Everybody says, "Can I have it? Where can I get it? Can I buy it?" Because it is a fantastic test tool.
I've already Googled it. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, maybe the code is out on BitTorrent or something like that. So.
Well, hang on.
But I do believe that for the VDI space, I do believe that that Tentry's product is a very attractive platform from a storage perspective. I get to play with a lot of interesting toys. A lot of the new storage solutions are in my labs, and I get to play with them. And I think the VM Store is probably my favorite right now, just because it does exactly what it's advertised to do. I've talked to lots of customers, and they're all delighted. So it's the real deal.
Testing with full clones, were those clones generated by the Tentry system?
Actually, I generated using View Manager. So they were not the clones generated. I didn't generate the clones on the Tentry frame.
Okay.
I have validated that works. It works quite well. In fact, I've used all of the snapshotting for one of my backup sets.
Right.
I'm a big Veeam fan too, so I do all my backups with Veeam, but I was happy to have the ability to snapshot at a hardware level my management infrastructure and my base images.
It was through the VAI interface.
Yes.
So it did generate Tentry clones under that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a key distinction. When there's a request to create a clone, there's a query to the data store, in our case, the VM store, as to whether or not VAI supported. So all those full clones, the creation of those is delegated to the VM store, and the VM
Okay.
store does create them all.
That's really what I wanted to know.
I'd like to clarify that Bill Hill is interesting and does have exciting stories.
No, he's gonna hear about this conversation. He's gonna give me. Oh, did he? Oh, that's funny.
But he's not sure what the definition of
Connected
lemon
world.
is.
Yeah. I'm going to be on stage at VMUG in Portland next week, and he's going to be in the audience. He's probably going to ask me some trick question when I'm on
Yeah,
stage.
he's gonna make you pay.
Oh yeah.
Good luck with that.
He's a good guy. So, but I really appreciate your time. I hope this was interesting. It's easy to get lost with all of the great storage technology, and I really think that Tentry's doing things going about things the right way, especially for VDI. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Tristan. John, anything you want to add?
No, that's great.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan. I think one of the reasons we wanted to share this, in addition to the fact that we did get some great results, is there are a lot of different comments being thrown around by lots of vendors about VDI and VDI capabilities, and we thought we wanted to sort of present to you, this is how we're evaluating our relevance and our fit for a VDI use case, and we think this is very thorough, very valid, very relevant, and very real world from that perspective that Tristan just described. And so when we talk about kind of how we, what our cost per desktop is, what our performance is, that's what we're using as the validation for those claims. And I think it's important that, I wish this tool were out in the public too, as well, from the standpoint that everybody will be using the same benchmarks. But I think just the depth of the testing we did is a testament to what we're trying to do in terms of delivering the capabilities for VDI. So thanks again, Tristan, for running the tests and for coming.
I think in a pilot and proof of concept scenario, sometimes it's daunting to think about bringing like a VNX, or an isolon array into an environment for a 2-week pilot project or a POC. And if you could take a VM store and have the thing online in 8 minutes, ready for its first virtual machine traffic, and then you can actually spin up clones that rapidly, you can have a very quick pilot proof of concept in an environment that you can't achieve with some traditional storage technology.
Yeah.
What's one last fun note to that, it's consistent with the testing that Tristan did. Sometimes it's kind of hard. Customers try to burn down a VM store, but in this case, we just run out of server horsepower. So that's a pretty consistent experience, I think, that folks see out there. So
Just need more servers.
yeah, more servers, exactly.
More servers, that's right.
Inverted that whole equation.
We being a virtualization company, we don't like to bring lots of pallets of physical iron into our labs. We like all those servers to be virtual. But we are interested in kind of getting to the edge of the performance envelope on the VM store.
There you go. That's a challenge for you.
Uh-huh.
Quick question, just move.
Yes.
Of your sort of 21,000 VMs in production, what percentage of those are VDI versus server-based or something else?
We would estimate probably about 30%, 30 to 40% of those are VDI. Actually almost all of the VDI deployments on Tintri are mixed environments. So there's some VDI and some server on the same system. But we estimate probably 30 to 40% of the VMs are VDI